Dry vacuum test. First thing, it's got to be dry. Okay, there's a little bit of water left in there. We'll give it a shot and see if it'll work, because we're using this engine. Usually I'll park it on an angle and kind of get everything drained out, let it sit in the sun for as long as I can, really get it dry. But I believe this engine's pretty tight anyway, so I don't think it's going to have an issue. What we do is you get it all drained of water. In this case, there's still water in the tank, because then we can refill it faster if we do have to go fight fire. So I closed the number one, so we still have water in the tank. Everything else is opened and drained out. You got to go in the pump panel here and the Y strainer with the rock trap, drain the water out of that. Any residual water that's in there, when you put this under vacuum and you have negative pressure, you have vacuum in there, the water can boil at a lower temperature. So potentially you could boil water at, probably just under straight vacuum, not down to 50 degrees, but the water that's in here is probably 70 or more. So under vacuum, you're going to just boil the water off, and that water vapor will fill the vacuum, and you'll show like you're failing your vacuum test, even though you might not be. So this test for leaks is really what it's all about. So drain all the water out and then go around and close everything back up. Those little bits of water is what's trapped inside the valves. I'm gonna go ahead and put the caps back on them. You can take this to a higher level by, once you're under vacuum, you can start testing the caps. Pop the cap off and then test the valve next to it, see which one's leaking. I usually start with them all capped, and I just hand tighten the cap. If you have issues and you're not passing, standard tight, then you can troubleshoot by going through individual valves. Pump drain, it was out, it was open, it is now closed. The bypass, there is a check valve in the bypass. However, if I'm checking for vacuum leaks, I'm going to close that, and then I can check the actual check valve later. I can open it up and see if I lose my vacuum. You simply pull the primer and watch your intake. You should drop to at least 24 inches. It's hard to tell what exactly 24 inches is on the gauges we have, but you should drop down there to 20 inches or so of vacuum. It needs to hold that for 5 minutes. Okay, you can lose, I think the standard in NFPA 1911 is you can lose 10 inches of vacuum in 5 minutes. So as long as you don't lose more than 10 inches in 5 minutes, you're okay. A really good, well-maintained engine isn't going to lose anything for days, not 5 minutes. I know people who do this as a joke, and they'll dry vacuum up a truck and leave it sitting there for days, and somebody comes back in and runs it later and goes, whoa, what happened? Anyway, here we go. Pull the primer. Primer's a little bit sticky. I got about 22, maybe a little more. It's hard to say. Can we zoom in on the gauge? Let's see. There we are. Okay, that's the pump pressure gauge, outgoing pressure. That's the intake. We're probably 30 seconds into it. Hasn't moved, hadn't budged an inch. We need to show that in 5 minutes, in 5 minutes, it is still holding that much vacuum, or hasn't lost more than 10 inches. You go ahead and turn it off. So, what we were talking about is the fat line here is 0. The first one is, the first mark coming down is 10 inches, 20 inches, 30 inches. So we had it down to, it's probably 22, 24 maybe, hard to say. After 5 minutes, it's at like 21. So it was a pass. Totally passed. We're good to go. If you have a vacuum leak, then you would then try and identify where it's at. You can put pressure into the system and see, put a latex glove on and start feeling all your plumbing, and the air coming out, the pressurized air coming out will rub on that and make a noise. Or you can individually go through a bunch of this, which we'll do next. Let's zoom back out. So we're still holding vacuum, everything's holding strong, and the other thing I'll do is I'll pop caps. And what that does is it tells me if I have a problem with one of these valves. So far everything tests good. I don't think we have any caps on the front valves. So no major issues there. And then it'll go fast if, Okay, so the other thing you can do is you can check your check valves with this. So is my pump cooler bypass check valve working? I might get a little jump. Not one that I could see. So that check valve's working. And the other check valve I have in here is off my number 2 going back into the tank. This one will, if I open that valve, I have a direct line into the tank, but that spring check valve is closed. So this thing is in pretty darn good shape. But there we are, that's a dry vacuum test. We have no vacuum leaks on this engine. And the next thing we'll do is a Goodyear primer test.